sales director here for the company in the US, and he knows by heart everything about this wine because we've been discussing about that, and he is the man today.
Thank you, Joaquin.
All yours.
Thank you, Joaquin. Thank you, Vinous. Thank you all for being here today. I also don't have an accent from Argentina. I have an accent from North Carolina, so you're going to get a whole mix of accents today. Somewhere along the way, I walked through the right door and met the Zuccardis, and now have been working with them on various levels for numbers of years through the importer, and now for the last 5 years working directly for the family as their man in the USA. I couldn't be more proud to work for this family. They're some of the most passionate, hardworking people in the wine business and have done incredible things and have grown in this space and in exploring these terroirs in such a short period of time. I'm just hanging on to my hat to stay along with them because it's fascinating. Every day is very different. Every vintage is a challenge. Every vintage is changing in the ways that they harvest, the way they farm. The winemaking has changed in such a short period of time that it keeps life very, very interesting. And along with the rest of the great growers here at the table, they've done incredible things at getting out the message that the region brings. It's an honor here, that being said, to be at this table with this panel of incredible producers, of which I've followed along for many years in my wine career. You guys have done incredible things. So, Zuccardi. If you're not familiar with Sebastian, he is an absolute maniac and incredibly focused in precision farming, in terroir, in growing terroir-driven wines, and exploring the terroirs of the Uco Valley. And as Joaquin said, we're in Piedra y Altamira, in the southern part of the Uco Valley. This vineyard was planted, Piedra Infinita, was planted back in 2009. And as the great story goes, when Sebastian was wanting to purchase this property, it was across the street from another vineyard that they have, Canal Uco. And he went with his father, Jose Zuccardi, and he said, I want to purchase this property. And they went, it is not planted to vine. And they were walking the vineyards, they realized how stony it was, and Jose looked at Sebastian and he says, how many truckloads of stones do you think it would take to remove in order to plant in this vineyard? Sebastian, using his engineering brain that he inherited from his grandfather, thought, maybe about 300 or 400 truckloads of stones. And Jose's like, holy wow, that's a lot of stones we'll have to remove. But okay, we'll purchase the property and I think that the end result will be worth it. In the end, it was over 1,000 truckloads of stones that had to be removed in order to plant. So this is why the name of the vineyard is called Piedra Infinita, meaning infinite stones. It's extremely, extremely, extremely stony. It lies at the base of the alluvial fan, there in San Carlos and Piedra y Altamira. And so that being said, at the base of the alluvial fan, you have very, very shallow soils, which means it's very, very rocky. The soils here are alluvial, so when you look underneath the topsoil, it looks like a riverbed, right? And we know that through geothermal mapping, through using drones, so on and so forth. So when Sebastian planted this vineyard in 2009, they ripped out all of the stones. He also realized how stony it was and that he had a lot to learn about the geography and the geology of the area. So he brought in Martin Di Stefano, which is the lead agronomist of the team. He brought in Laura Principiano, which is the head winemaker at the winery every day, and Sebastian is the director. With conviction, they realized that they had so much to learn. They put together a research and development team, and that started just in 2008. Over the years, studying this one vineyard, they realized how heterogeneous the soils are within this one vineyard. I'm going to hold up a map so you see. You won't be able to see it from there, but you see all the colors. How crazy is that? It looks like camouflage. This is a soil map through where Sebastian has reached with his own soil classification, retro-applied back to a vineyard that was planted in a more traditional way, in blocks, in straight rows. What did he realize? That he had straight rows going over what he now classifies as 5, 6, maybe 7 different soil types. His soil classification is based on the level of topsoil, whether you have number of inches, centimeters, or whatever, and where it dips and you have much deeper topsoil, and then also the size of stones. Mind you, we're working with material that is granite covered in calcium carbonate, so you have a high level of limestone, great acidity, great drainage. But now he looks at this when he applies the soil classification and he says, If I have one vine going over 5 different soil types, what story am I telling? It's like once you see the magical rainbow, there's no turning back, you know? So once he realized and had this level of understanding of this vineyard, he said, I can no longer farm this row of vines going over so many different soil types, that every different soil type has a different message. Because with his tireless pursuit of being so precise in telling the story of these vineyards and carrying the message of these vineyards, he had to farm differently. Now the way he's farming this particular vineyard is using ribbons going over the various rows and harvesting, in some cases, 1 row 2 weeks apart, depending on which part of the row you're in. Because the soil dictates the expression of the fruit and the time at which harvest should be. And they can be very, very different in 1 row. So this wine has also evolved very much over the number of years. First vintage was in 2012. At that time, Sebastian was still working with more oak and a more traditional style, harvesting at a more higher ripeness level. In 2013, he had convinced his father to break ground on a brand new winery. If you've seen pictures of it, it's state of the art, and it's entirely devoted to concrete. So he had studied different materials, stainless, different size of oak, different toast of oak, different ages of oak, and also different sizes and shapes of concrete. He decided he was committed to concrete. Why? Because in 2014, he made his first wine, all Malbec, entirely in concrete, and it proved to him that there was no other direction for Malbec specifically than to work with concrete, and specifically in egg and amphora shape, because it allows for minimal oxygenation. So you preserve the freshness of this cool climate. You preserve the texture that you get from these very chalky soils. You preserve the natural, beautiful acidity and energy that you get from this place. You do not lose the complexity that the natural wild herbs and flowers provide in the wine. Where before, when you were harvesting so much later and you had higher ripeness levels and you were using oak, you lost all these beautiful complexities that were naturally found in the wines that we didn't realize existed until we started working in this way, harvesting earlier, working with concrete. So the first vintage of this wine was 2012, and every year since 2014, he gained more confidence in the knowledge of the vineyards, more confidence in working with concrete, with Malbec specifically, and as of 2018 was the first vintage that this wine was vinified and aged entirely in concrete. For this vineyard, they will harvest 45 different parcels based on the different soil types and profiles within the vineyard. Then they'll separate those, and for this wine, being the single vineyard wine, but they call it a finca wine, it would be maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 5 to 7 different parcels from the shallowest parts of the soil, from the shallowest parts of the vineyard. Why? Again, because you know through geothermal mapping that below there are crests and valleys. So it will come from the crest, from the shallowest parts of the soils within the vineyards, and take those parcels and those particular vats, and then in the end make the finished wine for the Finca Piedra and Infinita. What I love about this wine, and again coming from cool climate, you have beautiful, beautiful energy. You have beautiful natural wild aromas and herbs. You have wild herbs there called la jarilla that grow that really come through like a natural savory herb like rosemary. You have more like black olive that comes through that you find more reminiscent in the wines from the Northern Rhone. You also have some iron that comes through. I love that it's not just so fruit forward and available and in your face, but it's a wine that makes you a little bit more pensive, that you have to sit with and really explore the complexities that you find as you taste through this wine. I also see, we're talking about ageability, wines of this style, of vintages like this and the ways that everybody is moving. There's no question now that we have
to see it, by the way.
We have to see. But for me, you know, if you're to compare to many other great wines of the world and you've tasted them, you know, at a current vintage and then some with some age on it, you can see in comparison that we have a ways to go.
The balance is there.
The balance is there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.